Wendy's up in Gauteng today, which means she is joining us via Zoom, but always great to have you with us, even if it must be from a distance. Wendy, welcome back.
Thank you, Pippa. Good to be with you, albeit, as you say, digitally. What do we call it? Electronically, whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, nice to have you here. We're going to be revisiting pretty much an evergreen topic, the subject of returns, as we contemplate a listener's problem with a couch. And this one, unfortunately, didn't have quite as happy a customer service journey as the couch story we shared a week or two ago. Once we've resolved this one, we might have space for some open line calls a little bit later in the hour. So if you are wanting to raise a different consumer topic, please do feel free to send that WhatsApp through in the meantime, and we'll try and squeeze a few in at the end. Wendy, the issue of returns, it is evergreen and we need to keep revisiting it because it is still one of the most misunderstood and misinterpreted sections of the Consumer Protection Act. Why is that?
Well, I think because for every question you ask around the question of returns, there is an it depends answer. But in short, the main factors that determine whether you're entitled to a refund are: did you buy the product in a physical store or did you buy it online? Is the product defective or have you just changed your mind about it? And in the case of a defective product, did you buy it less than 6 months ago or not? And the answers to those questions will determine whether you have a right to say, I want a refund or not. And in my experience, many of the people in the various customer service departments fail to recognize and differentiate between a change of heart return and a customer wanting to return something for a refund or an exchange because it's defective. So the standard company policy is normally within 30 days. And if there's a complaint that comes through in a request for a refund, after that, they'll say, well, you're out of the window. And then it comes to me. Well, what worries me is the ones that don't come to me and the people just accept that and don't get what they're legally entitled to. But that's, in my experience, the main problem is this failure to differentiate between just a change of heart and actually this product's defective and I'm entitled to send it back or bring it back and get a refund.
Okay. Now, our complainant today, Kelly Davis of Langebaan, her experience is one of the latter cases. It was a defective product and she had exactly this complication that the person dealing with the complaint or the return request didn't identify that and didn't respond appropriately. Won't you just, before we speak to Kelly, Wendy, you can just sum up for us what happened? What problem did she bring to you?
Okay, sure. So she bought a couch from Take-A-Lot and it was delivered on the 3rd of May. And as she was busy moving and finishing up renovations, she didn't open the box immediately. And that's a big problem area. So I would always say, no matter what your circumstances, even if you aren't ready to place the product or use it immediately, you should open it to see if there are any issues with it. So, but this I was moving, renovating is a common scenario, especially with furniture and appliances. So, she opened she unboxed, to use the influencer's word. She unboxed the sort of typically L-shaped sofa 5 weeks after it was delivered in early June, and that's when she discovered that there were a range of problems. The most minor one was a tear in that fairly delicate fabric that they use on the underside to cover up all the inner structure that's stapled on stuff. And then far more significantly, there were 2 cushions missing and there was damage to the arms. I've seen the photographs. You can see that it's not as it should be. And then she said just generally it was a poorly manufactured product and she didn't feel it was fit for purpose, regardless of the specific pieces of areas of damage. So Take-A-Lot's return request form on its app gives customers roughly 100 words to describe the problem. And Kelly says she used that space to describe what I've just shared now. And she says she did actually also mention the minor tear in the fabric in her initial message to the company. So it was all there when she logged the return. It should have been an open and shut case, but her return was declined. And for weeks, as she was protesting, the explanation she got amounted to, you've reported it to us too late. It's outside our 30-day window. She disputed that. And importantly, she was a 5-star complainant in that she had dated photographic evidence of everything, the unopened box, the damage once she had opened it. And that's such a great tip for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And the couch that she had repackaged for collection. And the legal problem with Takealot applying its 30 days returns window to this case is that it wasn't a change of heart return. The couch had quality issues that are covered by Section 56 of the Consumer Protection Act, and that gives consumers 6 months, not 30 days, to return goods that are defective. And this is something that is often missed. The Act actually says in the case of defective goods, they must be returned at the supplier's risk and expense. Most of us just will take it back. But in the case of a big item like this, we shouldn't have to pay for the collection fee. That is to be a cost to be borne by the supplier.
Okay, and that can be significant in the case of a big item like this.
Sure.
There is also another sort of logistics aspect that's worth mentioning to this case.
Yes, so Kelly says both the delivery and the collection of this L-shaped sofa couch were a struggle, complicated. Apparently 2 items were packaged as one because as it was, the couch was too heavy and awkward for a single driver. The package had to be literally rolled up her driveway and later rolled into the over the wheel arches into the collection van. And the delivery team needed help from her builders and her husband both times. So yes, it is an awkward piece of furniture, but I think it's fair to say that it wasn't the most professional of drop-offs or deliveries and later collections.
Okay, thanks for setting the scene there. Now, before we talk about how Takealot responded when you took it up with them, Wendy, let's bring Kelly in because she has been listening patiently on the line. And Kelly, we so appreciate your joining us today to share this experience with our listeners because I think there are a lot of lessons for all of us to learn. Thank you for your time and welcome to CapeTalk.
Hi, thanks very much.
Sure.
How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Kelly, you've just received the highest praise I've ever heard Wendy deliver, calling you a 5-star complainant for the way you documented what was wrong with the couch. As a matter of interest, what made you be so sort of pedantic about photographing as you unpacked? Was it that your gut feel was, I'm going to need proof here, or is that just who you are and the way you always handle deliveries?
Yeah, I think it's just who I am. I come from a procurement and supply chain background and also I've got a BA law. So there's just certain things, I think my brain just works in a certain way just to make sure that I'm covered. And I was rather hoping that at some point they would ask me for those photographs so that I could show them what had happened.
But they never did. So tell us a little bit more. I mean, Wendy's given us the bare outline that you asked for a return, Takealot said no, you're too late for the return. Did you try and argue back with them and say, I've got photographic proof that the thing is defective? Did you have the opportunity to engage with them, or was it just a no and close the door in your face?
No, I did eventually. So there's a little more to it. So you, like Wendy said, there's a very short amount of words that you can put in with regards to the return.
Yeah.
And even though the return was made on 35 days, they don't question that return at that point. They tell you that they'll send somebody to uplift it, which Wendy's already described. Both the delivery and the upliftment of the item were ridiculous. The upliftment, they sent us one delivery driver in a Bantam bucky initially. So they got sent away, and then the next day they sent a couple more guys. But again, the van was quite small, had to be squeezed in at the back, etc. So you send it back, and then what I got was a mail about 3 days later to say they're just rejecting it. They'd sent all the pictures showing exactly all the things that I had already photographed, which I hadn't had an opportunity to send them yet. So they send you those and they just say they're rejecting it and you will take it back, otherwise they will charge you for the delivery back.
Wow.
So my first port of call was to give them a call, picked up the phone. The lady said she'd have to send it through management and she would get somebody from management to make contact with me. I then followed that up with an email to say that I've spoken to somebody, I've asked you not to uplift the couch and that it needs to stay until somebody can discuss it with me. And then I had a mail back from her confirming that same conversation. And then the next day, somebody arrived to come and deliver the couch back. So we rejected it. and told them we're not taking delivery of the couch back. I hadn't heard from anybody from management at that point. We sent the couch back. Then I sent another email following up to say, I told you not to come and deliver the couch. I still haven't heard from anybody from management to discuss this matter. Then I got a mail saying that they were going to escalate it. Did I have any photographs? I said, yes, I've got photographs, no problem. Happy to send them through, and sent a full explanation of how the couch had looked when we received it and all the reasons why we were sending it back. So everything that I couldn't fit into that little, let's say, 100 words, I now put in full detail, like for each thing. The seat cushions didn't fit at the back of the seat. When you sat on it, they flipped over the back of the seat. They weren't made the same way as the picture. The couch itself was hollow and solid. There were so many things. The fabric wasn't the same color. It didn't run in the same direction. It wasn't the same fabric we'd ordered.
Sure.
Literally everything. Plus there was damage, which we'd already reported as well. So I'd listed the damage that was there. And this just went on and I kept having to mail and ask, is somebody going to get hold of me? What is happening with this? Eventually a lady did call me by the name of Kirsty and said, eventually I phoned and threatened them and I said, you guys can't even bother to communicate with me. What is going on? And by that stage I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming about it because I said, you can't just reject the return, not give me any information. Why are you rejecting the return? The explanation that came was that their supplier said that they're not prepared to take the return, but they're willing to replace 2 of the missing cushions that were not even there with the couch. And I said, but what about the rest of it? You can't tell me that you're not going to take return of the couch. What about based on those 2 cushions that are missing, which, by the way, also I have a right to return on. But what about all the damage and all the other things that are wrong with it? And all I kept getting back was, no, sorry, the supplier says no. And then at some point I got a mail to say that it had been resolved, that they were not going to give me my money back, that they were done with the whole thing, which is when I then decided, that's it. I went to Wendy, I went to Hello Peter, I put a post on Facebook, and in the meantime, I'd also tried to review the couch on Takealot, and it was removed twice. Yeah. So you can't warn other people not to buy it in the meantime and say the couch is not fit for purpose. When it arrives, it's damaged, etc. They just keep removing it, which I don't understand either.
So let's bring Wendy back in here. Kelly, stay with us, please. Wendy, you took all of that after Kelly contacted you and you went to Takealot and said, you're out of line here. This is a not fit for purpose issue. She should have been entitled to a refund because it's well within the 6-month window. What did Takealot tell you?
Okay, this is the statement I got. We can confirm that we've been in contact with Ms. Davis directly to apologize for the unfortunate experience, and we have refunded her in full for the purchase. At Takealot, we follow standard processes to ensure every return is assessed consistently and fairly. In this case, the item was returned damaged, under which our returns policy must be reported within 30 days of delivery. As the return was logged after 35 days of delivery, our returns team followed the standard procedure in declining the return based on the information available at the time. Following further investigation, i.e. your email, we determined that this initial assessment may not have been accurate. We are now actively investigating whether the damage occurred during delivery or whether the product itself was defective. So Kelly got her money back eventually, but only after everything that she's just explained to us, plus a media query on my part. And it doesn't actually, they're saying we've got a 30-day returns window, but it doesn't actually say that this was, okay, so this 30 days doesn't apply to a defective case.
Yes.
So even if they later ruled that it wasn't defective, which would have been accurate, they weren't within their rights to say you've missed the window, because the window is 6 months for defective returns. So it was rather unsatisfactory, apart from the fact that Kelly got her money back in the end, and then there's the issue of the return. Sorry,
The
I did
reviews.
ask as well
Yeah.
about the review issue, because that is very concerning. And their answer was all product reviews submitted on Takealot are subject to moderation. This is to ensure that reviews are related to the product itself, including aspects such as functionality, quality, and size. Reviews relating to non-product matters may be rejected in line with our moderation guidelines, and customers are encouraged to share service or general feedback with our help center. In other words, if you've got a problem with the product that's not around functionality, quality, and size, in other words, if you've got a complaint, then rather keep it within our help center and don't put it where everybody else can read it. And the point of reviews is for, as I said, Kelly is a 5-star consumer in terms of how she conducts herself because of her background, etc. And she actually went and looked at those reviews on the product to see whether she should buy it or not, and she didn't find anything negative.
Yeah.
Because if they were any, they would have been removed in the same way her two were. So this is something I intend to pursue further with Takealot, because it's very worrying indeed.
It is indeed. Wendy, we'll pause there, and after the news, we'll circle back to the sort of general lessons we can all learn from Kelly's case. But Kelly, just before we say goodbye to you, just for fairness, you can confirm that you have been refunded in full and the couch has been taken away and it is not sitting there as an eyesore reminder of the battle you had over it.
It has been removed, and I did get my refund, but I think it was probably because of Wendy's mail, because that happened 2 days after Wendy had messaged me to say that she was mailing. So I don't think it was anything that I did. I have to say, without Wendy's help, I'm not sure that it would have come to this. So I'm very grateful.
Well, we're very grateful to you, Kelly Davids. Thanks for joining us today to share the story. And after a short ad break and the news break, we will just come back to the issue of returns and a couple of the key lessons to take away from Kelly's experience. Wendy, there's a lot for us to learn from this. Before we recap, though, any of the key learnings, a voice note in from one of our listeners, Kaz, who's also had an issue with the Takealot return and has a comment off the back of Kelly's story. Let's just take a listen to that before we dive into the more general learnings.
Just an interesting point while you guys are talking about Takealot. I had a bit of a strange experience last week. I always order my daughter and my multivitamins, our gummies, on Takealot. Very happy with them, a fantastic product that we ordered from them. And this month when they arrived, I took the lid off and there was no seal on the box. Usually there's a seal on the tub. I know this because I ordered 2 different ones, and the first one I opened, I removed the seal and I put it ready on the shelf. The second one, I opened the lid, and I noticed there's no seal on it, and then I also noticed there was only about half the contents in the tub.
Sure.
So also just wondering how thoroughly Takealot is checking their products that are returned and sending them out for resale again. They returned it. They brought me a new product, no issue, and didn't even ask me to collect the tampered with one. But it's just a concern as to is there a check in place when products are returned, especially that sort of thing that is for consumption.
Thanks for that, Kaz. I mean, Wendy, yeah, I'm glad to hear that in Kaz's case, the return was handled properly and without question, and she got what she, so full marks. And I've got to say, I've processed returns with them previously where everything went fine. I've only had one incident where a return, we had a bit of a sticky one, but it was resolved in the end. So generally, mistakes will happen in any environment. As you always say, how they deal with it and how they respond to the complaint and rectify the mistake is what turns somebody into a loyal and repeat customer or makes them say, I'm never ordering from you again.
Exactly. And in Kaz's case, it would be difficult to know, and in the absence of her taking a photograph, sort of opening that tub as she takes it from the delivery person, as solid proof that this is how it came. They believed her, which is great. And then, one would hope that when the product was, she didn't, that's what they said. So it's relatively low ticket items. They don't bother to collect because it's not worth it for them. They don't, it's a cost to collect. So they rather just say, it's fine, we'll send you a new one.
It. Yeah.
If you, or credit. And if you did it repeatedly, then they might red flag you and take a different approach. But that's a very good example of why, and I admit it's very difficult practically to always do this, but to open your packages in front, or either as they're delivered or as you open them with a timestamp photo will show it's just happened.
Yeah.
And in many cases you've got completely the wrong. It's happening more and more in my experience. You get completely the wrong product. Nothing like that you delivered, and they do, in my experience, handle those cases very well as well.
Okay, thanks for that. And thanks, Kaz, for the voice note. Wendy, let's just sort of zoom out, if I can put it that way, and move away from the specifics of Kelly's couch incident and rather talk about a couple of reminders of our rights when it comes to defective goods, and also things to remember and lessons to learn from Kelly's case. Should we start with a bit of a recap, particularly if you have received defective goods? Just remind us what we are entitled to.
Okay, so I'm going to give back what I said in the beginning. That depends. If you've actually, it doesn't actually depend with defective. It depends when it comes to change of heart. But with defective items, no matter what a retailer, be it a physical one or an online one, whatever policy they have drawn up for themselves, it's completely without merit, invalid if it doesn't sync with the Consumer Protection Act, which states that if a product becomes defective, not fit for purpose, poor quality, within 6 months of either purchase in a store or delivery to you, you have the right to return it for your choice of a refund, a replacement, or a repair. And it doesn't matter, and we've discussed this, but I want to repeat it because I'm getting so many of these complaints. It doesn't matter whether it was on sale or not. So you buying it on a sale, an allegedly reduced price, we only have their word for it, that it's a promotional offer, is completely immaterial if that product then proves to be defective. But many an online retailer has a clause in their terms and conditions which states no returns or no refunds on sale items. And I've had a lot of success when I take this up with the companies. They remove that. They said they weren't aware. They should have been aware, but full marks for fixing it when I pointed out to them. So those are the main ones to be aware of. And the other thing, and this causes a lot of consumers to push back with me, is they'll say, I tried to return it, it's defective, but they wouldn't refund me immediately. And it is true that the supplier, the retailer, is entitled to send off an allegedly defective product for assessment to rule out user abuse. So you're not entitled to put your hand out or for the money or ask them to refund to your credit card immediately. There's no time limit in the Act, but the Consumer Goods and Services Ombudsman says between 5 and 10 days is reasonable. And then they must, they can't take it upon themselves to repair. They can't decide, this is a quick repair, we're going to repair. You have the right to say, I want my money back, or I want a replacement.
And just to elaborate, to elaborate from a practical perspective, their right to go and assess it, Wendy, is to check that, this is actually a defective. I'm going to go to an old example, CD player. There was something wrong with the machine and you're entitled to have a machine that works. But they also have the right to open it up and check that there wasn't 2 liters of Coke poured into it by your toddler, which caused it to malfunction.
Exactly.
So it's them defending themselves against user abuse, as it were. The other thing people get a bit confused about, Wendy, is the concept of fit for purpose. And won't you just elaborate for us a little bit more and remind everybody what that means? Because a lot of people get confused, particularly when you talk about clothing, around fitting and it being fit for purpose.
I remember years ago somebody bought a pair of designer jeans from the V&A waterfront and was most put out when told that they weren't entitled to return them, because he said, they don't fit me, so they're not fit for purpose. They're not fit for my purpose. And that's not, that's, especially the way in the clothing, you can see how that maybe could get confused. But it's not fit for purpose is not to be confused with doesn't fit me properly or doesn't fit into my lounge. It means that the item was not able to perform the job for which it was intended safely or reasonably well. So an oven that doesn't heat up, a hairdryer that doesn't blow, or that switches off by itself after 30 seconds, that kind of thing. But I do get a steady stream of emails from people who have misunderstood. So Raven of Belito is a case in point. Back to couches. He bought a couch from a very well-known furniture company. He says he'd warned the salesperson that his flat was small, but there was no discussion around exact measurements, which was where Raven fell down. And when the couch was delivered, yes, you guessed it, it didn't fit into his lounge. And the retailer then offered to refund him, but minus a 20% penalty deduction, which in Raven's case was 2,100 Rand, and he felt that was very unfair. In fact, he said to me, I'm sure that's not legal. So I had to tell him, sorry that you, but you don't in this case have the right to demand a full refund. In fact, the retailer would have been within its rights not to take back the couch at all. But what many do is just this. They will say, okay, we'll take it back, but we'll charge you an admin fee as a deduction. So it ranges it's normally between 5 and 10%. 20% is admittedly on the high side, but there's nothing stopping them doing that. So the takeaway is to do, when buying furniture in particular, is to do your homework and know exactly what you want and actually have some proof. So I would cover it with an email and say, my couch measures this and this. Do you have anything that will fit, or will your couch fit these dimensions, kind of thing, so that you could then say that would be a case of mis-selling. If they said yes, is this car part suitable for my vehicle? Yes. If it isn't, then obviously that's mis-selling, and they must refund you in full. No penalty charges.
Okay, thanks for that. Right, there are quite a few follow-up questions coming through.
Hi team, talking about Takealot. I've got a bit of a weird one. I ordered an item which was supposed to be ready for collection on the 2nd of June. Still hasn't arrived. I can't cancel it online. So I actually, after I ordered another product, went to the pickup area at Takealot, the Richmond one. I spoke to somebody there who got on the phone and tried to phone their own customer services, but after 17 minutes, I timed it, they couldn't get somebody on the line. So this Takealot person couldn't get somebody on the line from customer services to find out what's going on. So the item is still sitting there in my ordered list, and it just says will be not yet ready. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to do.
Gosh, that's a tricky one. So Wendy, he's placed an order for collection. It hasn't arrived more than a month later. He wants to just cut his losses and cancel the order, but it can't do it. What would you advise?
Please email me. I'll sort it out. Well, I'll attempt to get it sorted out. I'm pretty sure I will. I mean, that's a no-brainer. He needs his money back, or he needs the product. But I think at this stage, let's get the money back and try again, start from scratch. Sometimes these things go horribly wrong. For me, the biggest issue with this one is you then can't communicate about it. 17 minutes, their own people couldn't connect with the mothership. And that's indicative of a major problem. That tells me a lack of capacity. So so, the after sales or the customer care function is not in keeping with the number of sales they're doing every day.
Okay. So, Eben, please send an email to Wendy, consumer@knowler.co.za, KNOWLER, and just put CapeTalk, Takealot collection in the subject line. She'll keep her eyes out for it. Consumer@knowler.co.za. Patsy asking on the WhatsApp line if a retailer is entitled to charge you for the return.
Not if it's defective, no. So if you bought something online and you have a change of heart, you have a 7-day cooling off period in which to send it back. So you don't have this advantage with a physical shop purchase, but you do have this cooling off period to change your mind because you haven't had a chance to engage with the product before you buy it. But that's covered by the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, but the Act does say that the retailer is entitled to pass that cost on to use the customer. However, this is when the it depends comes in. If the product is defective, then they're required to uplift it at their cost.
So yes, they can charge you if it's a change of heart. No, if it is a defective return. Patsy, thanks for the question. Another voice note in. Let's take a listen.
Hello, Pippa. I have a question for Wendy, and it pertains to an experience I had with an iPhone. It had been very quickly, I had gone in explaining that I needed an iPhone for my 95-year-old mother, who is both hard of hearing and sight impaired. And they showed me some still photographs of what they call their easy mode. When we bought the phone, we discovered that, in fact, anyone who is sight impaired is going to have extreme difficulties really using the phone properly because they can't switch out of easy mode. In easy mode, you can take a photograph, but you can't view your gallery of photographs. And so you have to go through a very complex process to disable easy mode, go to your gallery, and then re-enable easy mode to make the phone easier for you to use. Which is not possible for someone with sight issues. And AI backed this up and said, actually, Samsung is a better choice for people with that bundle of disabilities. Apple serves people with a different range of disabilities more effectively. So I felt I'd had the functionality poorly explained. I also got charged a quite hefty handling fee on that telephone, and I returned it within 24 hours. With all its packaging, absolutely the only thing that, they had set it up for her, but, I returned it very promptly and said, this is not going to meet her needs. And I still got charged the handling fee. Anyway, would love to hear Wendy's comment.
Thanks, Linda. Wendy, what do you think of that?
So that we in the exact scenario I spoke about just a few minutes ago when I said it's a case of mis-selling. So if you say these are my requirements, and they say this product will meet those requirements, and they don't, they specifically don't meet the requirements that you specified, then it's very clearly a case of mis-selling, and they should give a full refund. They will take a knock because the phone has now been used, activated, and they can't sell it as new. Well, they shouldn't sell it as new. But the point is that the customer shouldn't be penalized for a case of mis-selling. If Patsy hadn't been clear in the extent of the disability or whatever, that would be different because that would have been on her. But it sounds like she was very clear about the requirements, and that particular phone was sold despite of the fact that it wouldn't fully cater for such a consumer. So if Patsy is the
it's
energy,
Linda, yeah.
Sorry, Linda. It was Patsy who was the previous one.
Yeah.
If Linda has the energy to email me, I will do my best to engage with that retailer around the issue of mis-selling.
Okay, thanks for that. Let's squeeze in one last question. You have mentioned earlier the shop has the right to assess a defective item to make sure it's not a customer-induced thing, or that it's and you also mentioned checking on frequent complainers and returners of items. Keith is asking whether a shop can actually refuse returns if they can see that somebody is a regular complainer who frequently returns goods at the same place. I mean, again, it depends. If they're returning goods frequently because there are problems with the goods frequently, they have the right to do so, right, Wendy?
Absolutely. And it's, that's the only criteria, that the return is warranted. I mean, if the odd one turns out to be not valid, well, that's fine. But there's, they can't say you've brought things back too often and we're not accepting it. Absolutely not.
Okay. I know there is the concept in retail of the hamper hunter, Wendy, the person who's always complaining in the hopes that they're going to be offered a voucher or a little something extra to make them go away. So I can understand where the question comes from. But Keith, the bottom line is, if the reason for the complaint is valid and they can demonstrate that, then there's no reason why multiple complaints shouldn't be upheld by the store in question. We do have to wrap there. Apologies that we didn't get to quite all of the returns related questions, but we appreciate your engagement with the topic, and the number of questions tells me, Wendy, that it is a subject we need to revisit regularly. So thanks for all your efforts on our listeners' behalf in following up these cases, and we look forward to having you back in studio next week, Wednesday.